The name of this is Resisting American Empire, put on by these two organizations. I'm the vice, Vic, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm the vice president of Young Americans for Liberty.
I'm a pretty active participant with the Common Action Free School. That big banner over there. Our homemade banner. Yeah, so.
If anybody wants to get on our email list for either of those organizations, we'll pass this around.
And I should say that, I can't speak for Kyle, but nothing I say is in any way representative of the free school. Everybody in the free school is their own person, and I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah. Same would go for me and Young Americans for Liberty. I'm definitely more radical than most of my members. So my beliefs are my own. And we're going to keep this really informal today. So anybody wants to shout anything out, go for it. Any confusion?
Yeah, I just want to introduce what we're doing by saying, at first when Kyle and I talked about this, I was hesitant and I didn't know if I wanted to do this, to talk about this stuff with him. I wear this shirt every day, so you know. The reason why I didn't think I wanted to do this is because I didn't really think I was qualified to talk about this stuff. I'm not a veteran. Kyle's a veteran. I don't really know much about military history, even though I'm going to be a social studies teacher.
He knows more than the average bear.
Anyway, I just felt really, what's up? Really unqualified for this. But then I thought, no, this is exactly why I should do this, because this is important to me, and we should all feel comfortable talking about what's important to us. So I wanted to make a point out of it. Like, this is really important, and I should talk about it, whether or not I feel qualified or not. And I would implore all of you to do the same thing with the things that you feel passionate about.
Exactly. Just because you're not an expert doesn't mean you shouldn't care about these topics.
And that's what the free school is all about. So anybody who wants to get involved with that, please.
Okay, that's me. I have some credentials, lack of credentials, I guess. But I was in the Air Force for 6 years, active duty, and during that time frame, I never actually went to war. I don't have any war stories for you from Iraq or Afghanistan, but I do have a lot of, I think, valuable insights from my time in the service. For one, I was a deployment officer, so it was my job to send people to war for several years. And because of that duty, among others, I started investigating foreign policy and foreign relations, and I started becoming radical peacenik, for lack of a better word. And when I was a kid, I used to drive around with my grandpa, and he would have me listen to Rush Limbaugh, and as I was a kid, I kind of came into politics from the right. And in the service, I started seeing all these things that didn't really stack up, all the justifications for the wars, and I started questioning these things. I signed up for the military after 9/11 and before we went to war in Iraq, so I thought we were going to get the bad guys. And I was 19 at the time I signed up, and throughout that time I started studying more and more, and I moved way far away from Rush Limbaugh, and I started becoming like a Naderite. I was kind of a Ralph Nader fan. The first time I voted for president in 2004, I voted for Ralph Nader. And I'm just trying to explain kind of my philosophical, political theory progress here. And in 2006, I became a libertarian, and I was very outspoken against the wars. Even though I was still in the military, I still had 3 years left on my contract. And about 2 years ago, I became an anarchist. But don't be too alarmed. There are actually numerous American veterans that have become anti-war activists. I'm definitely not alone there.
We should say probably that part of the reason we're doing this together is we both self-identify as anarchists, but we sort of came at it from opposite ends. If you could dichotomize things like that, but you really can't. So that statement doesn't.
Well, he refers to himself as a social anarchist, and I see myself as more of an individualist anarchist.
Yeah, that's probably irrelevant, but
I always loved the idea of free markets, and I still do.
And I despise private property. Here we are together.
As far as some of my experiences in the anti-war movement, I've been a member of the Iraq Veterans Against the War. I've worked with the local organization with Stefen and Greg, the Bloomington Normal Citizens for Peace and Justice. Vic is an active member there. I founded Young Americans for Liberty in 2009, which was an explicitly anti-war libertarian student group. Also in 2009, I founded the McLean County Libertarian Party. I had a long kind of political streak, mainly with third parties after I got out of the service. So I've had some experience in this whole activism thing. We assume most people here are already probably pretty familiar that we live in the age of the American Empire. So I'm just going to give some brief highlights. The most important thing I wanted to get across was that this is not new. We didn't just get an empire after 9/11. As long as we've had an American state, we've been fighting wars for corporations. I mean, a lot of people don't know about all these wars. They're kind of buried in history, but we went to fight with the Barbary pirates in like 1783 to make it safe for chartered corporations. And from then on, it got worse in the 19th century, the Mexican-American War. Then you head into the 20th century with Latin American interventions. I had a quote from a guy that I think is really important, just to let you know that this has been going on for a while. This is General Smedley Butler, who died in like 1944. And here's his quote. "I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service, and during that period I spent most of my time as a high-class thug for big business, for Wall Street and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenues. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown & Brothers. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for the American sugar interests in 1916. I helped make Honduras right for the American fruit companies in 1903. In China in 1927, I helped see to it that Standard Oil went on its way unmolested. Looking back on it, I might have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was operate his racket in 3 districts. I operated on 3 continents." So I think that's a real powerful quote to let you know that this is not a new development, but unfortunately so few people realize the history of American empire. And here's another great quote from George Orwell. He says, "The nationalist not only does not disapprove of atrocities committed by his own side, but he has a remarkable capacity for not even hearing about them." So that is kind of the great obstacle here, is that we have to confront people with these historical truths, with these realities. This was a pretty telling slide, pretty telling picture that I got, and it describes the chances of dying at the hands of a Muslim terrorist. And it's pretty slim. Dying in your sleep, you're 87, much more likely to die in your sleep or die from choking on food. At least during the Cold War, the Soviet Union posed a supposed existential threat with the threat of dying in a nuclear hellfire. But now we're just supposed to be terrified of Islamic radicals. And because we're so terrified of these Islamic radicals, we've had the largest military mobilization since World War II. I thought this was a good Venn diagram here as well. Just to let people think about it in a new way. We had a terrorist attack on American soil that killed about 3,000 people on 9/11. And historically, terrorist attacks have been considered acts of crime, and they tend to use law enforcement procedures to go after the criminals. Instead, we've invaded multiple countries and dropped a lot of bombs. Now, here's a little hypothetical. What if we had a terrorist organization operating out of Chicago, Illinois? Would we think it's acceptable to bomb Chicago and then impose a military occupation on it? Obviously not.
Can I also add to this?
Yes, please.
Part of the reason that we supposedly go to blow up brown people on the other side of the world is that we're spreading democracy, we're saving lives. In 2001, he said, like Kyle said, about 3,000 people died because of a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Over 300,000 people died because of tobacco-related illnesses in the United States alone. That's a lot more. I just bring that point up to illustrate the fact that if we really cared about saving lives, maybe we would try to get people to stop smoking. That would be one thing we could do. We wouldn't have to kill anybody to do it.
Yeah, I saw a reverend the other day. He said if we fought the war on terror as hard as we fight the war on poverty, there would be no poor in America.
No, you mean that flip.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. My bad. Cornell West. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you that don't know, Barack Obama is just as guilty of war crimes as George Bush would be. This no-fly zone business in Libya is particularly egregious. It's just war by another name when you're dropping a lot of bombs on a country. He's kind of covered himself in this veil of multilateralism and a softer rhetorical approach. So he really is the iron fist in the velvet glove, I think. Stefen, do you have any thoughts about our new president?
I don't like him.